Hello, everybody.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
So looks like am I audible? I am audible, and so
Yes, sir. Yeah.
then I will turn off the sound for you. Sorry, but this is what are we going to talk about today. It is about eating disorder. Well, eating disorder looks like it's not our problem, let's say. So I thought, I mean our problem. It's not a problem of Kyrgyzstan, and maybe it's not a problem of India or Pakistan. But last 5 years here in Bishkek, we can see a lot of cases with eating disorder, and they're becoming more and more numerous in the local practice. And I think in India there will be also plenty of these people. Pain additionally because of the development of the mass media sphere, social media. They make us closer. They make us closer to the Western culture, and also Eastern culture. It may become closer to the Western culture, and they believe that anorexia nervosa or eating disorder, they go so from the modern industrialized countries with high income. So in this society, this disease is highly presented, and it looks like we also have, let's say so, a happiness to have these disorders, despite maybe we are still not so industrialized country, but due to the Facebook or other social networks, we got their values, and unfortunately, we got also their, let's say so, diseases. I don't think that's only their disease. So eating disorder, what are they? Do we know? First of all, anorexia nervosa. And what kind of the disease? So that's a disease. Then a person already lost a weight, and he or she has a weight approximately 85% of the minimum that is required for this age and for this gender. So a person already has underweight condition, quite obvious. That's more than enough, believe me. So the minimum of the weight, it's visible in me. For example, my minimum, my appearance will be quite fitted, quite thin. But if I will lose plus 15% from that mass, so that will be a very, very skeleton-like person. And also, what do they have? An intense fear of gaining weight. Now, the fear is the basis of this disease. Fear of becoming fat. Even and then obviously they underweight, but they afraid panically to become very, very overweighted. So well, the person, you see, first of all, self-evaluate himself or herself as very incorrectly. They think that they're normal, or even in most cases they think they are overweight. Believe so. You look at this girl, and indeed, she believes, she really thinks so, that she is really fat. But obviously, this girl needs help. You always want to prefer, not to prefer, to propose her some meal because you think she will die from the starving. And she looks like from the old movies or from documentary movies about some war refugees or war prisoners that was in a very hostile condition in a camp. So she looks very bad. For example, and in the females, we can see the problems with menstrual cycle. That's also very often stuff. So again, the anorexia. Anorexia do not mean the absence of the appetite. Yes, they want to eat. They want to eat eagerly. Not eagerly. They eager to eat. They starving. But it's their own decision. It's a self choice. Despite they really, really want to eat. They're really hungry day by day, every moment. But they starving in order to make them thinner. In order to make they want to have a good shapes. At least it's a conscious motivation. Unconscious motivation, we will talk a bit about that later, but the obvious things is their conscious motivation is to be fitted. Where is the borderline? For example, it's a body mass index. I hope you know all what is body mass index. So body mass index gives us the conclusions about the weight of the person, because body mass index it's something that can ask to escape the influence of two factors for the making decision: is that this person is overweighted or not. So these two factors are the height and weight. If the person is too high, his weight should be, his norms for the weight should be bigger. If it's a person is short, so his norms for his weight would be smaller. So what to do? Body mass index was introduced to solve this decision. So if you have a body mass index about 20 to 25, that's normal. I hope you know that's from 25 to 30, it's exhaustive. No, overweight. From 30 and so on, it will be obesity. And these persons, they have, if you have a weight below from 20 to 11, from 20 to 18, that will be underweight range. And after 18, anorexia nervosa begins. I always use my example. So I'm not fitted. Actually, I'm a bit overweight. Not a bit, significantly overweight. My body mass index is 29.5. So in order for me to decrease my body mass index till 17.5, I have to lose 40 kilograms from my 92 kilograms. 40 kilograms. And I should do it fast. In this case, I have anorexia. So approximately after 3 months, after 2 months, I have to lose all these weight until this number. So I cannot imagine even how I should be starving. So somebody have to put me in a jail or in a kind of a chamber, or I don't know where, but they have to keep me there voluntarily and meal me just in order to not to die from the instant starving, from the dramatic starving. In this case, yes, in this case, it's possible for me to lose so big weight. So what can lead me? You can hear. And these girls, usually it's girls, their motivator is fear. Fear to the level to the psychotic level. What does mean psychotic level? So psychotic level of fear, it's a fear which no more recognize it as the fear, which is not recognized as exhaustive, too strong, too intensive. And this fear leads to the breaking of the ability to test the reality. So it is a leading cause of the problems with the reading, with the connecting, with the understanding of the reality, with the perception. For example, when she looks at herself in the mirror, she can see a skeleton, and she does not see the skeleton. She see the overfed. Well, that's a fear jump. Etiology. Well, etiology of this disease can be, as said, bimodal, biological, and cultural. Two factors are involved over here. Usually in films and I don't know, in the movie actions, or not actions, in the movie, in some performances on TV or somewhere else, they describe anorexia nervosa as I don't know, is the consequence of the culture, is the consequence of nowadays tendencies. Like, that's because of the fashion, that's because of these celebrities which only think that's only about their appearance, and all these celebrities are very thin, too thin, and these celebrities actually force our public opinion. Yes, but that's only partial point of view, because we also have a biological root of the development of this disorder. So, evidence for social cultural etiology. Well, first of all, yes, the beginning of this disorder became very fast in 20th century, 20th century and in 21st century, especially in the second half of the 20th century. Then population over the earth become more wealthy, and it's a time for the mass media, it's time for the fashion, it's time for the trends, and in this time we have the increased amount of these diseases. But that's not only 20th century, it was a bit earlier, but in another form, this anorexia. We will talk about this a bit later. Immigrants, very interesting study was made in United Kingdom, where there was make a comparative study between two groups. The Aborigines, local Anglo-Saxon people from the local Anglo-Saxon culture, so children or population from the local families which live there with a lot of generation and who represent culture, Eastern or Western culture, purely. And also they compare with the prevalence of anorexia among the immigrants. A lot of them was from India and from Pakistan, and so they didn't find too much cases of anorexia among the immigrants in a first and second generation of immigrants. So we, for example, the parents who was born and children, they also was born in India, but they immigrates in early age, for example. So among these population, there will be not so much anorexia. But in the second, it starts to grow up, and in the third, the amount of the disease is approximately the same as in the general population. So we can make a small conclusion. If you're going to walk in another country and you're going to have a family over there, so be ready that your children will be still in your culture, in a culture area, but your grandsons and granddaughters, grandchildren, they will be from another culture. They will adopt only almost totally the values of the local culture. Sorry. And incidence of these diseases higher in people who are more rich. who have time, money for the fashion, time, money for the look, for their appearance, to be involved in that. So they actually communicate one with another. They involve in these communities, and these communities induce each in this community. They induce each other to be involved in this competition to for that, who is more beautiful, who is more fashionable, who is etc. So these are the standards of beauty of the 20th century, and as you see, well, the bones, too many bones over there, and that is special. That's believed to be beauty standards. This one is the standards of 18th century. This picture, so you can see that very easily that quite big difference of the standards of beauty, and it's not a 20th century. But what is interesting, that's in it for even in a history, even in a history where there was a cases of anorexia nervosa, you can see that's a picture from anorexia nervosa of Mrs. A. It was first described by William Gall. It's a famous British therapist who discovered a lot of diseases, and among them there was anorexia nervosa. He was the first who described that, and he treated a lady. You see the picture before and after. And she was also suffering from anorexia nervosa. And again, about the origin, cultural origin of anorexia nervosa, that's very, very deep actually and anxious, because in each culture we can see the tradition of not starving, of fasting. And actually fasting can be understood as a type of starving, because it's obviously people stop to eat, but in order to make themselves more pure, in order to discharge their spirituality from some evil emotions, from some negative experiences, from negative tendencies. Well, to purify yourself spiritually, you have to fasting, and fasting usually it's a very, very strict restrictions in your diet, in the food. So food should be pure, should be, I don't know, halal or how that's kasher, kashiric or something like that. So it's usually something without fat, something very light, and most case it's vegetable diet. So it's cultural stuff. So in order to purify yourself, you start, you fasting. If you too much dislike yourself from inside, if you too much dislike your spirituality, you're not satisfied with that because too lot of sins, too lot of dirty things, too lot of positive and negative, too lot of negative emotions, too lot of negative, well, a non-positive energy inside of you. If too loud, so there will be too intensive starving, and so a kind of a challenge for your body. And these religious over, let's say, so overactive practicing also sounds and looks like anorexia, voluntary anorexia. And I don't think that these guys are very well accepted even in their culture, in their sphere, because of that's not about to purify, it's about to purify yourself, your spirituality. That's about to save yourself from the excessive fear to be punished. Evidence for biological factors, for biological origin, or evidence for that the biological factors are involved in this disease. So concordant rates. for the monozygotic twins is higher. What is concordate rates? That's concordate rates means the two monozygotic twins, if one of them have a disease, so the rate, the percentage of the probability that his monozygotic twins will also have the same disease, this phenomenon we call concordance, and the percentage we call concordance rate. Sorry. Here, obviously, it's higher. Biological factor, you see that's involved. And among the relatives, as you see, there are a mood disorder like most of them, of course, it's a depression, and some of them is the anxiety, and actually it's a combination. So among the first degree relative, mother, father, brother, we can find people who also suffer from kind of from this type of mental disorder. And also what we can see in these people, no doubtly, we can find by the, for example, fMRI scanning. fMRI scanning allowed us to scan the areas which are overactivated, and also to find which part of the brain is working. So it is established that in people with anorexia nervosa, there is a domination of the norepinephrine functioning. So norepinephrine, it's a fear, as you remember, fear and anxiety. So too much fear in the brain, and serotonin functioning is not enough. Serotonergic areas, they are not so active, and that means that's serotonergic system in the brain. They're responsible for the calming of the patient. They're responsible for the feeling of safety and feeling of happy and satisfaction. And also, they're responsible for the for the suppressing of the dopaminergic system, and dopaminergic system also responsible for the fear and anger. So not enough serotonin, not enough safety. Not enough safety means a lot of fear, and the fear is exhausting. Also, there will be a decreased brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's also found in that. So epidemiology. More than 90% of affected individuals are female. Yes. Female is actually young girls. 10% of the boys left. These boys are fragile. They've female-ish like. They usually involved in kind of a performances. They are dancer, ballet dancer, that is very popular among them, or somebody who is involved in the performances. And as some researchers said, most of them are homosexual, has homosexual orientation or homosexual tendencies. Maybe they don't they spend their life as homosexual, but they have these desires, or they have these motivations. It's their choice, actually. Lifetime prevalence, 1%, 1 or half of the person for the population. 1 or half of the person for the population. Again, that's a high. 1 among 100 people will suffer from anorexia. 1. That can be too much. Paying attention that these diseases can kill. And the prevalence, the time of onset, it's you see the first wave, it's 15 years old. The second wave, it's approximately 21 years old. So in this age, we can most frequently find the girls or young ladies with the anorexia nervosa, but actually it's 17 years. So young age, before 20, beginning from the adolescent age, they can suffer from this disorder. They can start to suffer from this disorder. Later, especially after 22, 25, the beginning is of this disorder, the first onset of almost impossible to see. And body mass index loss, so they have 11 or 18 points of body mass index. But despite of that, they have a reduction in total food intake and another symptoms, body image distortion. Self-perception. Their self-perception is fat, overweight, and the certain parts of the body too big. What kind of certain parts of the body? They're really skinny and they have some curves, normal, healthy curves, which exist in human face. For example, B-sharp bodies over here. And even if a child very, very thick and have no weight, is down weighted. You even can see in this child, these B-sharp bodies. In these girls, also these things present. They have a very skinny face, very, how's that? Not rounded, no, angled face with the skins, with the bones, but one place will be rounded in the shape. And they say, see, I'm fat. Or same objects, same same structures we can see in the thighs. Actually, it is not. They made of the connective tissue, and the mission is the same: is to keep these connective tissue connects cells for lipid cells, but they almost disappear, but they still present, these matrix. And this matrix also gives some small shape over the skin, like this. And again, you see, I have a fat buttocks, or I have a fat thighs. What happening with them? One of the explanations, psychological explanation, that's again turn back to the etiology of this problem, is that for them, they've been parented in a manner that it's never enough for them. They never can feel themselves satisfied and never can feel themselves perfect. They always on the way to the perfectness. Actually, not on the way, on the run, on the rush to the perfectness. Why? What kind of parenting or what happening with them? It's a special manner of parenting from their mother and from their families. What kind of it? And how does it look like? A mother and father usually, so sometimes they really want for their child to be successful. And they start to prepare, to train, to stimulate their child for the success, for the fighting, for the competition from the beginning, from very, very early age. For example, they send them to the mathematics from the 4 years age. They will find some school for the young talents or something like that. So they spend their money, time, devotion to improve some skills. And this child also are very often involved into the 5 or more activities, like personal trainer in mathematics, like personal trainer in English, or some sports, some dancing. Well, they have to be developed in multiple modalities. Their parenting. And what do they do? They always stimulate. How to stimulate? Actually, you have they choose one way to stimulate, to always criticize and always push them. You see, you lazy here, you see you lost over here, so check it, fix it and go, and don't be so lazy, don't be so unattentive, etc. So they criticize everything, and they intentionally do not reward their child, do not telling them a good words about their achievements in order, because and the principle is simple. If I gonna give you warm words, if I give you rewards, if I will, I don't know, tell you that's a great guy, that's wonderful, it's beautiful, how after that you will stop and have a relaxation and become a lazy bone, and that's it. You will lose your future. So they fight for the future by criticizing them, by pushing them, by transforming for them a chronic feeling of unsatisfaction with the achievement of their children. And that lead for the same habit, internal habit, for development of the internal habit of these girls. These girls are learned to find and to stress their attention on the everything which is out of ideal. So these girls are never satisfied with their achievement in the school. They can win, they can participate in a national mathematics Olympiad or chemistry Olympiad, but they can take a second place. And that's not a first place. That means they are losers. Imagine yourself a person who had won, and not one, who had a second position in Indian mathematics Olympiad. I cannot even imagine what competition was that and what kind of genius was taking it, participating in these Olympiad, and the second place actually. That's great. But for them, it's nothing. Same. But then these girls start to be concentrating on their weight. In this case, they never satisfy. Plus, of course, these girls, as their parents, they always been very controlled by their parents, and that their body is only thing what is left for them to control. Sometimes the reason for development, it's over controlling measures. Over controlling measures from the parents. Denial and concealing behavior also theirs, because parents always, not always, yes, always concerned, always worrying about their weight. So these girls start to make an excuses. Oh no, I'm not gonna eat that because, well, because I have a pain in my stomach, I have discomfort in my stomach, something with my intestine, I don't feel myself well. One case, and another case, okay, if these excuses don't work anymore, they can eat, yes, and their parents are happy, everything is good, breakfast is finished, so I have to go to school. But in the school, or just before leaving home, she somehow secretly vomits, induce vomiting, and that's okay. And then go to the school, and nobody noticed that. Food-related obsession, as we said, they always want to eat. They always hungry, and that's why they study some recipes from different cuisines, and they cook it. They meal all their family, not themselves. Physical findings, because of the denial and concealing behavior, as you see, we can find only physical findings, physical symptoms, and they are emaciation, hypotension, a special orthostatic bradycardia, hypothermia. These are, yes, symptoms of the lack of energy, lack of nutrition, skin dryness. Of course, there will be skin dryness. It's not enough fat to make skin more greasy or at least more with a more shiny. So dry lanugo. That's, you see the downy hair. Downy hair. There's a hair which, or lanugo. It's a hair which exists on a newborn child, few months, not few months, few weeks, one month, and then they disappear because they don't need them anymore. It's hairs without stern inside of them. In this case, a person gets back for his childhood, becoming too young, let's say, so pathologically too young, and this hair starts to grow on neck, on the area of on the beard area, and also on the shoulders. And it can be really visible then in a summertime. Then you look at them through the sun, shining sun shining behind, so you can see this arrow, this curve. They are covered with covered with a fur, very tender, but it's a fur, like the attempt to grow them up. Russell signs. Russell signs you can find in their hands. If it's right-handed person, they will be on the right hand, left-handed person on the left. How they occur? Because of vomiting. 2 fingers for the throat, and they do it very regularly, and they do it not one, they do it 2 times, and then in this case, this procedure, you have to evacuate very fast your fingers from the throat, so very often traumatizing of these areas of on the upper surface of the joints, palm finger joint area, and there will be a traumatization, especially if the skin is imposed to the gastric acid. They can deny, but but Russell signs, they own this stuff. Peripheral edema, lack of lack of protein in the blood, petechi at the extremities, sallow complexions also can be found there, amenorrhea. But amenorrhea can even precede the diminishing of weight because too intensive starving leads to the mobilization of all available fats in the body, including the building material for the estrogen. And in this case, there is no amenorrhea or delayed menarche or pubertal females. So these girls looks like they stopped their development. They are growing, and these girls looks like they turn back to their childhood. So she looks not so mature. She looks like a child, childish, and the salivary glands have a hypertrophy. Why? Constant stimulation. They always think about meal and they always salivate, and it leads to the increase in amount of salivary gland. Plus, these again leads to the feelings that they're too fat because they have a skeleton up and this upper area in the down area, but in the middle they got these salivary gland enlarged, and they again it's argument for them, a childish argument for them. They again they obese, over fat, so over fat that they have a round face. What's with what we should differentiate? We should differentiate with general medical condition, like you see chronic inflammatory bowel disease, hyperthyroidism, malignancies, a lot of disease which lead to the loss of appetite, which is serious, which lead to the intensive losing of weight, what happens here? People don't want to eat, first of all. Second, well, maybe they in chronic inflammatory bowel disease, they want to eat, but they cannot. And the second important things, they do really care and they do really understand they have underweight. It's one of the cause of their suffering. And but people in anorexia, they think that's too fat. Major depressive disorder, no fear of gaining weight. They just don't eat because they don't want it or they want to punish them, and they don't want to eat because they have no mood for it. Major depressive disorder, but they're so sad, so they have no any appetite. The treatment require multidisciplinary approach. So not only psychiatrists, psychotherapists, not only them, but also should be cardiologists, physiotherapists, or endocrinologists, neurologists. Why? Because in these starvation, in these very damaging starvation, we can see a multiple organ insufficiency sometimes, and this insufficiency develops very dramatically fast. So until a proper point, very distant point, this girl can torture themselves with the physical exercises, exhaustive physical exercises, so long running distance, so everything which burn out the calories, and it looks like it's okay with them. But in one not beautiful moment, but in one moment, it can be a very catastrophic decompensation. Then this girl can require the services of the emergency room or reanimational programs, etc. It's sometimes very difficult to save them because she did everything to destroy all the protective resources in herself, and sometimes it's even impossible to stop this. The treatment goal is to restore the weight, not to restore self-assessment. It's a secondary goal, but to restore the weight, that's our psychiatric goal. Actually, parents should be involved in family therapy, but their relationship can be very important. The trust, the encouragement have to go from the family instead of the criticism or instead of the impatient waiting of the result. For example, then when you at least when you again will be the same as you same normal girl as you were before. So this exclamation from mother can lead to the tension in the daughter. This tension again can stimulate self-assessment fear, low self-assessment conclusion, etc. So we have to be careful with supporting of the parents. And the pharmacological agents, what are they useful here? It's neuroleptics. But before, we have to prescribe in both cases anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They are drug of choice. But the treatment of choice will be a psychotherapy, first of all. Nowadays, yes, because they found that, yes, it's effective drug, using of tricyclic antidepressants, but not as effective as psychotherapy. In severe cases, olanzapine. This is an antipsychotic. It's also can be recommended. Prognosis and course. As I told you, so approximately 5 and 10 persons can die because of the very dramatic, catastrophic complication of this disease. Decompensation, which is a snowball from the mountains. It's running. It's you can compensate one position, but there will be another and third position. So sometimes very difficult to say that. 45, approximately half, will return to normal life, with normal values. 30 persons will have an intermediate outcome. So that means they will be in a normal weight, but sometimes they will be starving, sometimes they will be follow a diet, a healthy so-called diet. So if it's your aunt, do not visit her very often. Well, 25 persons will have a chronic disease, but not killing. So it's a lady. Sometimes we saw this lady, 40 years old, but she's very thin. And that's disease, anorexia. Bulimia nervosa. Well, before I'm doing that, we will make a small break for 5 minutes and then we will continue. Okay. Well, so 5 minutes passed. Now, to continue, we have on bulimia nervosa. Again, the direct translation will be like excessive appetite because of the psychological reasons. And so what we get to see here, the main symptoms over here of course, it's a binge eating. Binge eating means intensive, very active, very fast, very enormous periods of overeating, well, actually of eating, and the person becomes so stuffed so that he cannot have it anymore. But he, as or she, in this case, over binge eating have to include the period, like an onset, like a seizures of exertive eating, of how it can looks like. So people eat, and that's it, like an epilepsy, you know. The stroke, it has a beginning at the end. They eat, and after that, they recover. They recover control, regain control of their life. But before that, they have another symptom. They cannot control their eating. They cannot stop themselves. Can't do nothing. Like it's something above them. It's something biological, eagering to save their life. I don't know how to describe that. So they describe it as the overpower, much stronger than them. They eat, that's it, and nothing can prevent them from that. Next symptoms, because they overeat, they have an inappropriate compensation for that overeating, because they afraid to be fat again, because the let me show it for you because I have no mouth today with you. Their self-evaluation, as in anorexia nervosa, telling them that you're fat, that you over, you have to watch for your figure, because control your weight, and they eat, and after they eat, they try to compensate it, and that's a very cruel actually towards their body, what they are doing with themselves. So they do very, very unpleasant things. Vomiting, one of the most popular things among them. Vomiting, one. Laxatives, medication, exercises. So it's an exercise. It's like a punishment. They walk until they fall down without any so they actually give a torture, punish for each periods of excessive eating, and then they fasting or they have a diet. After that diet, that's it. They feel themselves well compensated until a proper moment, until their starvation will be so intensive, until their hunger will be so intensive. So to win them, and again, they turn back to this condition, to their stuff. 1 second. Sorry, let's continue. So that's this type of behavior, compensatory behavior and binge eating, occur at least twice a week for 3 months. In anorexia neurosa, it required for 2 months for these periods of exhaustive starving. And so epidemiology, the prevalence is 1%, 1 to 3%. It's a bit more than anorexia neurosa because anorexia neurosa requires a very big sacrificing, a very intensive sacrifice of themselves. Here is the people who are not so powerful to follow all these strict restrictions. So, but still, there are a lot of people in the population who use these methods. Well, first of all, to decrease the stress level, to decrease the anxiety, because feelings during anxiety or fear, they remind a feeling of hunger. But by eating, the feeling of hunger will only temporarily, the feeling of the stomach will only temporarily would be decreased. But after that, people will feel guilty because they did something wrong with their body because they overeating or criticizing themselves, and that will lead to the next, the consequential increasing of anxiety. That's it. And again, the circle of anxiety grow up, unpleasant feelings like a hunger, and again, eating, etc. So some people from this group also involved into that. But in bulimia neurosa, again, it's mostly the female, and it's mostly about the beauty, about your appearance, about how you looks like. Okay. Treatment. Before we go to the treatment, I would like to tell you that, of course, the prognosis is much more mild and much more positive for the people with bulimia neurosa, but sometimes the frequency is very rare, luckily, but they have during the vomiting. Very often vomiting leads to problems and to the weakening of the connection between esophagus and the stomach and the gastro. So this area becoming thinner and thinner, and also, and sometimes due to vomiting, there can be a acute destruction, acute separation from esophagus from the stomach, and as you know, there are a lot of vessels, venous vessels over there, and there will be a dramatic bleeding, and actually it's impossible almost to grasp them, to put diagnosis, and to run them to the surgery. They usually die on the way. One patient can be treated in outpatient wards. That means with the compare of anorexia neurosa, because in anorexia neurosa they should be inpatiently located because of the deceiving, yeah, you remember, because of the trying or concealing behavior. Okay, she is in your ward, she goes to the dining room, and she takes a meal. Okay, wonderful, she do it. But later, if she go home, she can have vomiting in any public toilet around. Yeah. So the anorexia neurosa, they put them in a condition that they eat, for example, in a psychiatric ward or in a special rehabilitation center. And after meal, they sit for 40, 20, for 40, 45, or maybe more minutes, for 15 minutes, until the stomach will digest the meal, and until the meal will go further to the intestine, in the location where it will be impossible to evacuate meal from the stomach due to induced vomiting. In anorexia neurosa, they can be treated outpatiently, of course. The basis will be a cognitive behavioral therapy. It can be effective for them, really effective for them, and antidepressants. Antidepressants, the treatments can be effective for the anorexia nervosa and bulimia. Actually, quite big dosage sometimes necessary, especially for anorexia nervosa or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And you remember why? Because these girls, they full of fear. Actually, they looks like a very seriously mentally ill person, so they only concentrated on one stuff. Their conscience only been focused on their weight and how not to gain the weight. That's it. That's all their work is. And these over concentrations sometimes require neuroleptic, as overvalued idea. But in this case, in case of bulimia, antidepressants would be enough to guarantee these people feeling of safety, calmness, etc. So that's might be all with the eating disorders. Now, I will wait for your questions. Wait a bit. Now you can turn on. Yeah, now you can turn on the sound. Is there any question?